Imagine walking through the sterile, echoing halls of a children's hospital. The air smells faintly of antiseptic, and the quiet murmur of voices blends with the occasional squeak of sneakers on polished floors. It's a place where hope and heartbreak coexist, where tiny hands clutch stuffed animals tighter than they should, and where life feels both fragile and resilient. Now picture this. A little girl in a wheelchair, her wild blonde curls framing bright blue eyes that seem to wise for her for years, asks a question so simple yet profound that it stops everyone in their tracks. "Where can I buy a dad?" she says, looking up at a man who has everything: money, power, success, but nothing that truly matters. His answer. That's where the real story begins. Robert Mitchell, 58, was used to commanding boardrooms, negotiating billion-dollar deals, and building an empire from scratch. But as he walked down the pediatric wing of Boston Children's Hospital, his leather shoes clicking against the floor, he wasn't thinking about stock prices or shareholder meetings. He'd just been told he had maybe a week left to live. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, terminal, no more treatments, just days to figure out what to do with all that wealth when there's no one left to leave it to. And then, like a bolt out of the blue, Lily Cooper entered his life, a spark of light in the shadow of death. Lily wasn't like other kids. Sure, she had the same curiosity and innocence you'd expect from a 4-year-old, but she carried something else too, a wisdom born from hardship, born with spina bifida. She'd never known what it felt like to run or jump like other children. Her mother died during childbirth, and now her grandmother, Martha, frail and aging, was her only family. When Lily asked Robert where she could buy a dad, offering $16.37, saved painstakingly in a plastic purse, it hit him like a punch to the gut. Here was a billionaire who could afford anything but couldn't buy time, faced with a child who counted quarters to dream of having someone to call dad. In that moment, something shifted inside Robert. For decades, he'd poured his energy into accumulating wealth, believing it would define his legacy. Yet here was a girl counting pennies to fill a void money couldn't touch. As Robert knelt beside Lily's wheelchair, ignoring the pain shooting through his body, he realized this wasn't just about her longing for a father, it was about his own unspoken yearning for connection. What started as a chance encounter became the catalyst for a journey neither of them could have predicted. Over the course of just 5 days, Robert Mitchell went from being a solitary, emotionally distant man to becoming a father in every way that mattered. But it wasn't easy. There were obstacles at every turn: legal hurdles, medical complications, even a greedy uncle who saw Lily as a ticket to riches. Every step forward seemed to bring 2 steps back, and the clock was ticking relentlessly. Could Robert make Lily his daughter before it was too late? Would she ever understand why this stranger wanted to be her dad? The beauty of this story lies, not in its twists and turns, but in the raw humanity of its characters. Robert isn't your typical hero. He's flawed, stubborn, and often selfish, but beneath the surface lies a man desperate to leave behind something meaningful. Something that won't disappear the moment he takes his last breath. And Lily, she's not just a victim of circumstance, she's a fighter, a dreamer, and a reminder that love doesn't need conditions or explanations. Together they form a bond that defies logic, transcends time, and challenges everything society tells us about family and belonging. But let me pause here for a moment, because there's another layer to this story, one that will keep you hooked until the very end. You see, while Robert battles his failing body and fights to secure Lily's future, something remarkable happens. He discovers that the love he gives freely comes back to him tenfold. Each smile, each hug, each bedtime story shared with Lily fills a void he didn't even realize existed. Meanwhile, Lily learns that families aren't defined by bloodlines but by the people who show up when it matters most. As the days slip away, the stakes grow higher. Will Robert manage to adopt Lily before his time runs out? Or will fate intervene, leaving her alone once again? What makes this story unforgettable isn't just the drama or the emotional weight, it's the questions it raises about what truly matters in life. Is it wealth, power, legacy? Or is it the simple, intangible things, like love, trust, and the courage to open your heart to someone else? By the time you reach the end of this narrative, you'll find yourself asking these same questions, and perhaps coming up with answers you never expected. So, as we dive deeper into this extraordinary journey between a dying billionaire and a little girl with $16.37, I want you to think about what it means to belong, to be loved, to matter. Because in the end, it's not about how much time we have, it's about how we choose to spend it. And for Robert Mitchell and Lily Cooper, those final days together turned out to be worth far more than any amount of money could ever buy. Don't take my word for it. Stick around. because the best part of the story, the part that will leave you breathless, is still ahead. Hash hash hash. The adoption battle, the days that followed Robert's decision to adopt Lily were anything but smooth. Each morning he woke up with a sense of urgency, knowing time was slipping through his fingers like sand in an hourglass. The cancer gnawed at him relentlessly, its presence a constant reminder of the ticking clock above his head. Yet, despite the pain and exhaustion, Robert pushed forward, driven by a purpose he had never known before. He spent hours on the phone with lawyers, doctors, and social workers, navigating the labyrinthine adoption process. Every call felt like a battle. Bureaucratic hurdles, medical assessments, and legal technicalities threatened to derail everything. But Robert wasn't just a billionaire because of luck. He was relentless. And for the first time in his life, that relentlessness wasn't about profit margins or corporate takeovers. It was about securing a future for Lily. Meanwhile, Lily continued to charm everyone around her. Nurses who had seen countless children come and go found themselves drawn to her infectious laugh and curious mind. She would ask questions about the stars on the ceiling decals in her room, wondering if her dad could see them from heaven. When she wasn't peppering people with questions, she was drawing pictures, dozens of them. Pictures of beaches, castles, and families holding hands under yellow suns. One day, she proudly handed Robert a crayon masterpiece, 2 stick figures, standing side by side, one tall and gray-haired, the other small with wild yellow curls. "That's us," she declared, pointing to the taller figure. "You're teaching me how to swim." Robert stared at the picture, his throat tightening. It wasn't just a child's whimsy, it was hope, pure and unfiltered. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine a different kind of legacy, not buildings named after him or stock prices climbing, but moments like this, captured forever in scribbled lines of wax crayon. But as much as Lily brought light into Robert's final days, shadows loomed closer than either of them realized. James Cooper, Lily's opportunistic uncle, hadn't disappeared quietly after their confrontation. Instead, he lurked in the background, plotting his next move. Fueled by greed and desperation, James filed motions and petitions, challenging the adoption and claiming Robert was exploiting a vulnerable child for publicity. His accusations stung, not because they were true, but because they forced Robert to confront uncomfortable truths. Yes, he was dying. Yes, he had only recently met Lily, but to suggest his intentions were anything less than genuine cut deeper than any insult ever had. The media caught wind of the story, and soon headlines blared across news outlets. Dying tycoon tries to adopt disabled girl and billionaire's deathbed adoption sparks controversy. Reporters camped outside the hospital, shoving microphones into Martha's face and snapping photos of Lily whenever she appeared in the garden. Privacy became a luxury none of them could afford. Amid the chaos, Martha struggled to hold herself together. Her heart condition worsened with each passing day, exacerbated by stress and sleepless nights. She confided in Jennifer, Robert's loyal assistant, who had taken on the role of mediator and protector for both Lily and Martha. "I'm scared," Martha admitted one evening as they sat together in the hospital cafeteria. "Not for myself, but for her. What happens when I'm gone? Who will fight for her then?" Jennifer placed a reassuring hand on hers. "Robert thought of everything," she said firmly. "He made sure you'd be taken care of, and after you—" her voice faltered slightly. "After you, I'll step in. I promised him." Martha looked at her, tears welling in her eyes. "You'd do that? Leave your job, your life, for her?" Jennifer nodded without hesitation. "She's special. Anyone can see that. And besides, Robert trusted me with the most important thing in his life. How could I say no?" As tensions mounted, so did the stakes. Thomas, Robert's longtime lawyer, worked tirelessly to expedite the adoption, pulling strings and calling in favors from judges and officials who owed him or Robert a favor. But even he couldn't ignore the grim reality. Robert's health was deteriorating faster than anyone had anticipated. Morphine dripped steadily into his veins, dulling the pain but also clouding his mind. There were days when he could barely stay awake long enough to speak with Lily, let alone strategize with his team. Yet, every time she entered the room, his eyes lit up, and for a few precious moments, the world outside ceased to exist. They played games, read stories, and talked about the beach house Robert had bought for her, a place where she could feel the ocean breeze and hear the waves crash against the shore. "Will you teach me to swim there?" she asked once, her blue eyes wide with wonder. Robert smiled, though it cost him effort. "Of course, we'll have lessons every day." Unbeknownst to Lily, those promises were becoming harder to keep. One night, as she slept, curled up beside him, Robert called Thomas into the hallway. His voice was weak but resolute. "If something happens to me before the adoption is finalized, I need you to make sure she knows. She needs to know she was loved more than anything else." Thomas nodded, swallowing hard. "She knows, Robert. You've shown her more love in 5 days than some kids get in a lifetime." Robert shook his head. "It's not enough. Not yet. Finish this no matter what." Thomas hesitated, then gave his word. It was a promise he intended to keep, no matter the cost. Back in the room, Lily stirred, reaching out instinctively for the father who had become her whole world. Outside, storm clouds gathered, mirroring the turmoil brewing within the hospital. Walls, James Cooper had returned, armed with new allegations and a slick lawyer eager to exploit every loophole. The hearing was scheduled for the following morning, race against time that neither Robert nor Lily could afford to lose. As dawn approached, the air grew heavy with anticipation. Would justice prevail, or would greed snatch away the fragile happiness Lily had finally found? With each passing hour, the answer seemed further out of reach, leaving everyone holding their breath, waiting to see which way fate would tip the scales. A new beginning the next morning. As the sun rose over the beach house, Lily woke up earlier than usual. She wheeled herself to the large window in her room, staring out at the ocean. The waves crashed rhythmically against the shore, and she imagined her dad watching her from somewhere beyond the horizon. Jennifer found her there a little while later, her small hands pressed against the glass. "What are you thinking about?" Jennifer asked softly, kneeling beside her. Lily turned, her blue eyes wide with curiosity. "Do you think Dad misses us?" Jennifer hesitated for a moment, then smiled gently. "I think he's very proud of you, Lily. And I think he's still here in a way through all the things he made sure you'd have, through the love he gave you." That afternoon, Thomas arrived with another envelope, this one marked for Lily. Inside was a letter handwritten by Robert before he passed, along with instructions for Jennifer to read it aloud when the time felt right. Sitting together on the porch overlooking the ocean, Jennifer unfolded the paper and began to read. "Dear Lily," it started, "if you're reading this, it means I've gone to heaven, but please don't be sad. You gave me something I didn't know I needed, a reason to truly live. In the short time we had together, you taught me what matters most: love, kindness, and family. I want you to grow up knowing that you are loved more than words can ever say." The letter went on to explain how Robert had set up everything to ensure Lily's future was secure, not just financially, but emotionally too. He wrote about Jennifer becoming her guardian if anything happened to Martha, and how he trusted her completely to guide Lily into adulthood. "You'll always be my daughter," he finished, "and no matter where I am, I'll always be your dad." By the end of the letter, both Jennifer and Lily were crying, though Lily's tears were mixed with a smile. "He really loved me, didn't he?" she whispered. Jennifer hugged her tightly, more than anything. As weeks turned into months, Lily thrived under Jennifer's care. Physical therapy sessions became less painful and more hopeful, with doctors amazed at her progress. The beach house became a sanctuary for her, a place where she could feel the wind in her hair and the sand beneath her wheelchair. One day, during a particularly sunny afternoon, Jennifer wheeled her close to the water. "Look, Lily," she said, pointing to the horizon. "Do you see those birds flying so high?" Lily nodded, her curls bouncing. "Dad said they remind him of freedom. He used to watch them when he was little." Jennifer smiled, marveling at how often Lily spoke of Robert as if he were still present. Maybe, in a way, he was. Back in Boston, the legacy of Robert Mitchell continued to grow. His company, once a symbol of cold ambition, transformed under new leadership inspired by his final act of humanity. The Mitchell Foundation for Pediatric Research funded groundbreaking studies on spina bifida, bringing hope to families around the world. Meanwhile, the biography of Robert and Lily's story, titled $16.37, became a global phenomenon. People everywhere were moved by the tale of a dying billionaire who found purpose in an unlikely bond with a child. It was being adapted into a movie, with proceeds going directly to pediatric research. When Lily heard about it, she simply said, "Good. That way, other kids like me will get better faster." Martha, now living comfortably in the assisted care facility nearby, visited Lily often. On one such visit, she brought a box filled with old photographs. Among them was a picture of Lily's mother as a young girl, standing on this very same beach. "Your mom loved it here," Martha told her, brushing away a tear. "She would have been so proud of you, Lily." Lily studied the photo closely, tracing her mother's face with her finger. "Dad said he'd find her in heaven," she said confidently. "I bet they're talking about me right now." Martha chuckled through her tears. I'm sure they are, by the end of the summer. Lily had grown stronger, both physically and emotionally. Her doctors were optimistic about her ability to walk with braces someday, thanks to the advancements funded by the Mitchell Foundation. Jennifer noticed how much Lily had matured since that fateful day in the hospital. She was still the same, bright, curious child, but there was a depth to her now, an understanding of life's fragility and beauty that most adults never grasp. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Lily turned to Jennifer with a serious expression. Do you think Dad knew how much he changed my life? Jennifer wrapped an arm around her. Oh, sweetheart, I think he did. But even if he didn't, look at everything you've done since. You've shown everyone what real love looks like. Years later, when Lily stood on stage at her high school graduation, clutching her diploma and wearing the sapphire necklace Robert had left her, she scanned the crowd for familiar faces. Jennifer, now gray-haired but still vibrant, waved proudly from the front row. Beside her sat Martha, frail but smiling, holding a framed photo of Robert. As Lily delivered her valedictorian speech, she spoke not just of her achievements, but of the man who had given her a chance at a full, happy life. My dad taught me that some treasures aren't bought with money, she said, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. They're found in moments of connection, in acts of love, and in choices that change lives forever. When the ceremony ended, Lily rolled her wheelchair to the edge of the stage, looking out at the sea of graduates tossing their caps into the air. For a brief second, she closed her eyes and imagined Robert standing beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Thank you, Dad, she whispered. Somewhere deep inside, she felt a warmth, a sense of peace, as if he were saying, You're welcome, my treasure. And so, the story of Robert Mitchell and Lily Cooper came full circle, not with sadness, but with gratitude. A dying man had found redemption in the eyes of a child, and a little girl with $16.37 had discovered the priceless value of unconditional love. Their journey reminded everyone who heard it that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or possessions, but in the connections we forge and the lives we touch. As the sun set over Cape Cod, casting golden light across the waves, Lily knew one thing for certain. Her dad might have left this world, but his love would stay with her forever, a treasure worth far more than $16.37.